Hi everybody, welcome to week 2 of George Brown's Social Media Analytics and Email Campaigns course. This week we are going to be talking about terms and tactics. So here's an overview of what we're going to be covering today. First we're going to talk about KPIs, metrics, and measures. What do these things mean? What's the difference, and why is it important that we differentiate? Then we're going to talk about tactics. I'm also going to go very briefly over campaign URLs. So this is related to campaign tracking and Google Analytics. And then we're going to talk about A/B testing, and then I've got your discussion question for this week. So first off, KPIs, metrics, and measures. All right, let's define our terms. First of all, a metric is a standard measurement. A measure is the number associated with that metric. So an example would be our success metric is click-through rate, and that was measured at 70%. So you can see that metric is kind of the unit, and measure is the actual measured unit. So centimeters would be a metric, 25 centimeters would be a measure. And this is really important that we're all on the same page with these things, because when you're in the workplace, people are going to be talking about metrics, they're going to be talking about measures, and when it comes to strategy, you want to be talking about, you want to know the difference between the categories of things you're going to be measuring and then the goals that you're reaching for, and that will likely have a measure associated with them. So then KPI, what does that mean? So it stands for Key Performance Indicator. And all KPIs are metrics, but not all metrics are KPIs. So KPIs are really the metrics that are most closely aligned with your business objectives. And it's really important to keep that in mind, that this bold section, most closely aligned with your business objectives. So I teach KPIs in pretty much every social media marketing course that I do with George Brown, and it's always very difficult for students to really narrow down what is the most important in terms of their business objectives. And that can be understandable, especially if this is a brand new concept to you, or if it's not something that you talk about in your office. Oftentimes, your KPIs will be set by your manager or by your manager's boss, or somebody who's really got their thumb on the pulse of the business's overarching objectives and goals. So oftentimes, if you are working as a social media coordinator, social media manager, maybe you have a job as a social media analyst or a digital analyst, something like that, there is a very good chance that somebody is going to be telling you what your KPIs are. But if you're working for a smaller company or a charity or your own business, it's important to know what key performance indicators mean to you and your business. So, for example, if I am working for a company that sells shoes online, I'm probably going to have one of my key performance indicators is going to be online sales. But perhaps I'm a retailer that has a website, but I don't actually offer sales online. So online sales is not going to be a key performance indicator for my specific business. So it's really important that you understand your business objectives or your organization's objectives, and really think about what are the things that are going to really help me understand whether or not I'm meeting my goals. So here's an example. Let's say there is a shoe company called XYZ e-commerce, and they shall sell shoes online. So their goals are to boost their fourth quarter sales by 10%, to increase their conversion rate by 2% over the next year, and to grow their site traffic overall by 20%. So, you as a marketer, you might not be the one setting these goals. These might be, handed down to you from your boss. And, if you are the type of if your role in your function in your company is just to measure things, you might not be able to affect these in any way. But if you are doing social media management or any type of digital marketing role, maybe you're writing content, maybe you're managing the AdWords. If you know that these are the things that you're looking to achieve, you need to be able to collect measurements from your metrics that are going to help you identify whether or not you're hitting these goals. So here are some of the metrics that you are going to be looking at. So you're going to be measuring your sales daily, weekly, monthly. And even if you are, maybe you are working as a marketing coordinator, and within your company, that role has the responsibility of also running all the web analytics. So you might not be directly driving sales. You might have an entire sales department that's working on this. So, but you still need to measure these things because that's your function. So, you're looking at sales daily, weekly, monthly. You're looking at your website visits. How many new customers are coming in? How many returning customers are coming in? What's the source? Are they coming from social media sites? Are they coming from Google AdWord buys? Are they coming directly? So is somebody, typing in xyzecommerce.com and coming to your website? What's the bounce rate? So how many people are coming to your website, looking at your web page, saying, "Ooh, that's not what I wanted," and leaving? And how much time are people spending on your site? So, maybe somebody only comes to one page on your website, but they stay there for a half an hour and they get what they need and then they leave. You want to be taking these different things into consideration. You want to be looking at your conversion rates. So again, how many of your conversions are from new visitors versus returning visitors versus returning customers? So returning visitors might not necessarily be returning customers. And this has a lot to do with your, your acquisition funnels. So you've got people who are just finding out about you. They're brand new. They've never visited your site before. What are they buying? Or does it take people a few visits before they pull the trigger and buy a pair of shoes? Or maybe they've bought a pair of shoes from you in the past, they're coming back for more. You want to look at your shopping cart abandonment rate. So how many people go through the process of, finding the shoes that they want, putting them in their shopping cart, filling out information, and when it comes time to click that purchase button, they get cold feet and they leave. Conversions by source. So, you know what your source is in terms of overall website traffic, but how many of those are converting into paid sales or paid customers? So, are the people coming from your social media posts higher converters than your AdWords versus email versus direct? And then you might also be measuring your audience metrics. So what are your social followings? This is where your Facebook likes, your Twitter followers, your Pinterest followers, your Instagram followers, all of that comes in. What are your mentions? Are you monitoring the web for other people mentioning your account? Are people talking about your brand? Are people interacting with your brand? What's the click-through rate from your own properties? So, for example, what's the click-through rate from, specific Facebook posts, or maybe you've got a blog post. What's the click-through rate from that? Your emails, all of that type of owned properties. And then there's a bunch of other things that you're going to be potentially monitoring as well. Things like customer service. How many people are, contacting you via social media because they're having problems with the checkout process, or how many people are contacting you because they're not happy with the product. So there are tons of different metrics that you're going to be measuring, and none of these you'll see has the word KPI written beside them. These are just the metrics. So this is kind of like that, very large group of things that you're going to be gathering data on. So what are the actual KPIs going to be? So let's look back at our goals. So one of our goals was to boost our fourth quarter sales by 10%. So the KPIs that you're going to be wanting to look at for this is conversion rate and site traffic. When it comes to conversion rate increase, so we wanted to do an increase of conversions by 2% in the over the next year. So the key performance indicators for this, so the metrics that you want to be paying attention to make sure that you're hitting these goals, is your conversion rate, your shopping cart abandonment rate, and your click-through rate. And then finally, we wanted to grow the site traffic by 20%. So the key performance indicators here are going to be, obviously, site traffic, what those traffic sources are, click-through rates, social mentions, and bounce rate. And so a lot of these might also be associated with your tactics. These metrics might be associated with your tactics, which is why it's important to be measuring this wide range of things and not just focusing on your KPIs. So KPIs are really important when it comes to identifying your overarching goals. They're also going to be really important when it comes to reporting to your superiors so that they can check in and see where things are going. KPIs are the type of thing that goes to the board of governors, to the vice presidents or the C-suite, or if you're working for a sole proprietor, it goes up to that business owner. So this is like really the bird's eye view of whether or not what you're doing is reaching your goals. So, if somebody says, hey, we want to boost our fourth quarter sales by 10%, you said, yeah, we did that. And your boss says, prove it. That's what your KPIs are really meant to do. Now, when it comes time to trying different tactics and trying to get more conversions and to get more site traffic, that's when it's important to look at these other metrics that might not be key performance indicators. So, if you're looking to increase site traffic, which is what we have here, grow site traffic by 20%, how are you going to grow that traffic? You are probably going to try some innovative email campaigns. You're going to maybe run some advertising campaigns. Are you going to do something special in your social media channels? Are you going to proactively reach out to influencers? So all of these different tactics also need to be measured. Even though, the inner workings of your influencer campaign is not going to necessarily be something that you report up to the highest level in your company about, because they don't really care what tactics you're using as long as you get these bottom line goals hit. But it's going to be important to you in your function to make sure that you're able to measure the work that you're doing and to assess whether or not what you're doing, day to day, week to week, month to month is successful to reaching these overarching goals. So as I said, the KPIs your key performance indicator are probably going to change based on your function within the organization. So marketing KPIs are going to be different from sales KPIs, are going to be different from customer service KPIs. They may change based on your quarterly goals and the campaigns that you're running. So KPIs aren't necessarily set in stone, especially because your goals are going to be shifting and changing over time. But the importance of KPIs and the purpose of KPIs will stay the same. They're always going to be helping you evaluate your strategy and your tactics to know how well you're performing. So let's talk a little bit about tactics. And so tactics are strategic activities to help you reach your business goals. So as an example, launching a live streaming series on Facebook is a tactic, but being on Facebook is not in and of itself a tactic or a strategy. So I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings with clients or even employers where they talk about, these are the goals that we have for our company and our strategy is Facebook. Facebook is not a strategy. Twitter is not a strategy. Pinterest is not a strategy. It's a platform. It's a platform, or perhaps you want to call it a channel, where you can reach an audience and try and get them to take an action that will, in turn, help you reach your goal. So maybe you're trying to sell a product to them. Maybe you're trying to educate them. Maybe you're trying to lobby them. If you're working in like social activism. So, tactics are these different activities. It's not in and of itself being on Facebook. It's not enough. And I'm sure over the course of your careers as social media managers, you're going to hear people talking about Facebook being a strategy or Twitter being a strategy. But you need to remember that no, these are not strategies. These are not tactics. We need to actually define our actions and our activities, and this is what gives us the basis of our tactics. Your tactics require measurement. So tactics will vary, by organization, by campaign, but needing to measure those activities won't change. So, you are probably going to have a few different jobs at a few different companies, and the ways in which you approach your goals and reaching your goals might be different at each of those companies. But no matter what happens, you need to know whether or not what you are doing, whether your tactics are working. So we always need to make sure that we are thinking about that before we actually start getting our hands dirty with the tactics. Before you start a new campaign, you want to make sure that you know what your measurements are, what your goals are, how is what I'm doing kind of affecting my bottom line in terms of goals. Okay, so let's look at an example of an Instagram campaign. So our same XYZ e-commerce shoe company is launching an Instagram influencers campaign to boost their online shoe sales. Everybody's really excited about it. They found these like really awesome 20 influencers on Instagram. These influencers fit their brand image. They're super cool. They're super trendy. They've all got really great style, and all of them have agreed to participate in this campaign. And in addition to paying the influencers, they have given the influencers a free pair of shoes for themselves, and they've given a code to the influencers so that the influencers can give back to their fans and give away a pair of shoes. And then there's a special link in the Instagram bios that all of the influencers are going to be able to use. And the importance of having a special link is so that the marketer, so you the marketer, are able to track which influencer is kind of the most effective at driving traffic. So this is this really great campaign. They've worked individually with each of the influencers. They've showed them, all these different product sources. All the influencers are really excited about this awesome pair of free shoes that they're going to be getting. They can't wait to style them. It's going to be awesome. The overarching goal for this campaign is to increase conversions from Instagram by 5% during the course of this campaign. So, what are the KPIs? Conversions from Instagram, clicks on Instagram bio links, and traffic from Instagram in general. So let's break this down a little bit. So conversions from Instagram, we want to know how many people start on Instagram, go to the XYZ e-commerce website, and purchase something. We also want to know how many clicks on Instagram bio links. So we want to know overall how many times did somebody click on a link that was given to one of our 20 influencers, but we also want to know how many clicks each influencer got. And this allows us to assess whether or not our influencer was a true influencer or whether or not those people have engaged fans. And this can come in handy for future campaigns. So, if this campaign is hugely successful, but then you find out that really it was only successful because there were 5 of those influencers that directed 90% of the traffic to your website, well, then those influencers are ones that you want to work for again, and you might want to reassess working with the other 15 influencers because, maybe they bought all of their followers. Maybe they have, they've been on Instagram a really, really long time, and a lot of their followers aren't very engaged. So this is all information that you can use. And then we want to see traffic from Instagram in general. So, this will help you figure out how many of your website visits are just generally from Instagram and how many are coming from this specific campaign. So that's one example. Let's look at Facebook. So let's say that the same shoe company, XYZ e-commerce, is also going to be launching a live stream series on Facebook. They're very excited about it. They have done a lot of planning with a lot of different departments, and they've decided that every Wednesday for the month of August, they're going to be going live with their in-house stylist. And they're going to be showing some behind the scenes for their new back-to-school line. A lot of times we see in August that brands start talking and advertising all starts shifting towards back to school. So this is the perfect time to get people thinking about buying new shoes. They can, the company is going to be able to highlight this new fall this new fall shoe line, and they're very excited about it. And so what they're going to do is during their live feeds, there will be a sale happening at the same time. And the sales happen using a code, and the code will only be announced in the live videos. So you have to be tuning into the videos to get the code, to get the deal on your shoes. And the code is only good for the new back-to-school line. And the whole point of this is that they've got a lot of stock, and they want to make sure that at least 50% of their back-to-school line is sold before September. They know that the more they can sell before back to school, the better, because once September hits, people get busy, they're already in school, they're not really thinking about buying new shoes, these will do for now, and I'll just wait because I'm going to have to buy my winter boots soon. So they want to make sure that their back to school sales are hit at least 50% before September. So what are the key performance indicators for this specific campaign? Well, they want to track the traffic from the Facebook Live video links. So every time they go live, they're also going to include a link to their website, and it's going to be a specific link so that they can track how many people actually click on that link. So how successful are these live videos? How successful are they at actually driving traffic? Then you also want to track how many sales have been made using these codes. And so, people might be coming to the XYZ e-commerce website just from a bunch of other sources. They might be seeing other social media posts by the company. They might already be fans of the company. It might show up in their Google search results. But the only way that people can get this code is from the video. So you're going to be able to track how successful that video was at driving conversions. You also want to know, Facebook generally, how many people are being driven from Facebook in general, and that way you can see the percentage of people that are coming from the videos versus just generally seeing your content on Facebook. And then you also want to see what percentage of your product was sold by September 1st, because that is the underlying goal, is to sell 50% of back to school line before September. If you sell 60% of the product, that's amazing. You've, surpassed your goal. If you sell 40%, you didn't reach your goal, and then you'll have all of the other metrics that you're collecting to figure out why that might be. So you can see, your shopping cart abandonment rate. You can go back to that and say, all right, I didn't reach my goal. What were some of those reasons? And those other metrics that might not be listed in your KPIs are going to help you gain information about why your campaign may or may not have been successful. Okay, let's talk about an email campaign. So our very favorite XYZ e-commerce, I'm obviously also the person that you should hire to name your company because I come up with great company names. XYZ e-commerce is launching a sale targeted to their email subscribers. And we'll be talking about email much more in depth later on in this course. But this is just for example purposes. So in November, it is Christmas and December. They're not going with the holiday, term. They're going specifically for Christmas and are targeting people who are in the Christmas spirit in November already. So their email subscribers are going to be getting 25% off shoes for the entire month of November using a special code. And so what they want to do overall is grow their newsletter subscriptions. And what they're trying to do is leverage the people who are already on their email. So their existing subscribers will get an additional 5% off, making a total of 30% off when they get 5 of their friends to subscribe to their email list. So not only is this kind of like it's a build the list, but it's also sell some shoes. So overall, their goal is to increase newsletter subscriptions by 10% in November and increase their online sales by 15% over last year's November. So they're comparing their Novembers. They know that November is a time where people are starting to do their Christmas shopping. They're doing their winter shopping. November, depending on where you live, I know here in Toronto is not always like super wintry yet, but you are thinking, okay, I probably shouldn't be wearing my slip-on flat shoes anymore. I should probably get myself some sort of winter footwear because the ones from last year have holes in the bottom of them. So November is the time to get people started thinking about their winter sales, and they do a similar version of this sale every year, and so they want to see if they can be more successful than the same sale last year. So this is also an important way to see how your different campaigns are performing over time. Okay, so what are the key performance indicators for this campaign? The number of new subscribers, November sales overall, and the percent increase in November sales over the previous year. Okay, so you might have noticed that there are some things missing. Facebook page likes, didn't talk about those at all. Didn't talk about Twitter followers or retweets or Twitter hearts. Didn't talk about Instagram followers or Instagram likes. And I also didn't talk about Pinterest followers. I also didn't talk about overall brand mentions or customer service. Didn't talk about comments. So why were these things missing? Vanity metrics. So Facebook page likes, Twitter followers, Instagram followers, Pinterest followers, they're not always going to be vanity metrics, but they can be vanity metrics if we're looking at them in a vacuum. So vanity metrics are measurements that sound great, but they don't really give you any real measure of success on their own. And a lot of times we can get sucked into this trap of vanity metrics where, as marketers, it feels really good to be able to see like big numbers associated with the work that you're doing. So, oftentimes when you're looking at your Facebook Insights and you see that you got a reach of, 25,000 people for one of your posts, and you feel so great because you've only got 1,000 likes on your page, and oh my gosh, isn't this so amazing? I totally went viral with that post. Well, that might be great, but what did that do for you? What did that viral post do for you? Did you get a bunch of clicks to your website? Did those clicks end up in sales? Did they end up in newsletter subscribers? Did your follower count go up on Facebook? Why was that reach important? And so you always want to be thinking about why you're reporting on something. Why is your Facebook likes important? Maybe Facebook likes are important to you because you have done a bunch of research on the return on investment on your Facebook likes. So let's say, for example, based on measuring over a long period of time, that for every 100 Facebook likes, on 100 Facebook page likes, you end up getting one person converting to a customer. So that is important information to know because all of a sudden Facebook likes becomes more important. So that if you get 100 people liking your page on Facebook, there's a likelihood that one of those is going to convert over into a sale for you. So yeah, you're going to definitely want to start increasing your likes on Facebook. You're going to start focusing on that because that it is actually a method of conversion and a method of sales. Not very many marketers have that information, and not very many businesses have that information, especially if you're coming at a Facebook page or a Twitter account or anything like that from a consultancy. I know that there are some of you who've been in a couple of my other classes, and I know based on that you are interested in becoming a social media or a digital marketing consultant. You're going to run into so many people who are going to say, oh, congratulations, we got 25,000, we got a reach of 25,000 on this post, like high fives all around the office. I know this happens to a lot of my friends working for some very large, yet will be remaining nameless PR companies. They talk about reach and impressions all of the time, and they send that data to their clients, but overall the content is crap. It's not driving any traffic. They're not getting any likes. They're not getting any comments. And there's really they might as well be showing that, that content to 25,000 robots because there's no conversion. There's no end game. There's no benefit from that. So, we really want to be as smart digital marketers, which I know all of you are aspiring to be. We don't want to get stuck into these vanity metrics. And so I'm not saying don't measure Facebook page likes. You definitely want to measure growth. You want to make sure that, if it's important to your company to be building an audience and building a community and engaging with people, then obviously growing that audience is going to be helpful to you. But you don't want to just be growing your audience or growing your numbers for the sake of growing your numbers. And I see this a lot, especially on Instagram. Oh, good grief. There are so many people who are just, oh, guys, I reached 1,000 followers on Instagram. It's a huge milestone for me and my company. And yes, that might be a huge milestone if you know that for every 1,000 followers, you get 10 clicks to your website or whatever it is that your conversion rate is. Maybe it's 100 clicks for every 1,000 followers. That's great and that's helpful. But if you're just trying to get that number because having 1,000 followers feels good, and next I'm going for the 5,000 followers, It's all about vanity as opposed to goals. So if you can associate a metric with a goal, and if it helps you in some way achieve that goal, or if it helps you identify whether or not your tactics are working, then that's great. But if you're just reporting on it because it feels really good and it sounds a lot better to your clients, then it's really not helping anybody. And it's not helping our industry either. Okay, that was my spiel on vanity metrics. You can tell that I maybe have some strong opinions about it. So let's talk about campaign URLs. Switching gears entirely. So campaign URLs, when I say campaign URLs, I'm referring specifically to creating custom campaign parameters with Google Analytics. And we're going to talk about Google Analytics when we talk about dashboards and web analytics specifically. But we are going to quickly look at it right now. So there are some custom UTM parameters in Google Analytics that you can create so that you can get more information. I will elaborate. So there are 5 custom UTM parameters. The first one is source, and this will help you identify the advertiser, the site, the publication, whatever that is sending traffic to your property. So, this might be, it might be Google as the source, it might be your newsletter, it might be Facebook. So the medium is the advertising or marketing medium. So it might be, your CPC campaign, it could be a banner ad, or your email newsletter. The campaign is the individual campaign name or the slogan or the promo code for your product. So, the XYZ e-commerce campaigns that we were running, it might be Christmas in November is the campaign that you're talking about. The medium would be email. The source would be, Christmas in November 1, Christmas in November 2, so that you would be able to differentiate between the emails. The term is UTM term parameter is used to identify paid search keywords. So if you're manually tagging your paid keyword campaigns, you would be able to use this UTM term to specify your keywords. And then you've got your final one, which is UTM content. And this is used to differentiate similar content or links within the same ad. So if you had 2 call to action links within the same email message, you can use the content and set different values for each so that you can tell which version is more effective. And so let's just take a look at what that looks like. So here we go. This is the URL campaign builder. So you can track all of the different information. So these are all of those UTMs that I just talked about. So you can put in an example. So let's say www.xyzecommerce.com. The campaign source is going to be Christmas November 1. Our medium is email. The campaign name is Christmas in November. No spaces, so you want to keep it with underscores if you want to do that. And then I'm not going to do anything for the campaign term or the content. So you can see that it's built me this URL. And so what happens when you use this URL and then somebody clicks on it, it populates your Google Analytics account with additional information. So let's take a look at that. And I just want to mention that in your additional resources section for this week, you are going to have access to the Google Analytics demo account. There's a link to this campaign builder tool and information about custom campaigns. So I know that I've gone through this very quickly. Google Analytics has a great support page that talks all about it, and there's a ton of different resources. And so in an effort to not bog you down with me talking a ton at you, which can be very boring and time consuming, and maybe some of you already know a lot about this because you've taken my class before or you've been working with this, I will direct you to this support page. So it talks about everything that I just talked about. It tells you how to set up your custom campaigns. It gives you examples, and then there's links to additional resources. So you'll find a link to that in your additional resources. You'll find a link to this campaign builder, which is really awesome. So there's all these related resources, so you can go through and read a little bit more about this. And then you also have access to the Google Analytics demo account. So this is the page that you'll show up at. And then to access the demo account, you scroll down a little bit and click on this Access Demo Account. So if you already have a Google Analytics account, it'll just open up the Google Analytics page for you. If you don't already have a Google Analytics account, you'll be prompted to create one. And don't freak out if you don't have a website that you have access to. That's totally fine. You can just use a URL that, you can use your Twitter URL, or you can use just google.com. It's a placeholder, so you don't have to worry about the fact that you don't have access to that website. You don't have to worry about populating the code. Set up your Google Analytics account. If you don't already have one, then come back to this page and click the Access Demo Account. So this is the Google Analytics demo account. We're going to be looking at this a lot more in future lectures, but you can by all means access this early and take a look, poke around, get a little bit of information, get a feel for how it works, explore, because I'm a data nerd. I love looking at charts and graphs and all these types of things, so this is really interesting to me, and this is very likely going to be the analytics program that you use in your career. So we're talking about campaign URLs, correct? Okay, get back on track here. So when somebody clicks on this campaign URL that you've built, you are automatically populating source, medium, and campaign. And you find that information, so on the side here, you're going to have all of these different places that you can navigate to. You're going to click on acquisition, and then you're going to look at campaigns. And if you click on all campaigns, you'll be able to get the information that you've just put in. So this is your campaign information. So the UTM campaign right here is where that information will come in. And you'll be able to add a secondary dimension, or you can look at the source. So this is the information that you've put in the source page, or in the source UTM. In the medium section, this is where that information is going to be in. So was it an affiliate, was it CPC? That's what they've done here. And then you can look at source and medium together. So there are a lot of different ways that you can look at this information. Go for it, play around. This is, again, a demo account that Google has allowed access to the world, which is amazing that they give you this kind of sandbox version. There are some limitations. You're not able to, for example, build your own campaigns or anything like that. So, you're not going to be able to see the results of my XYZ e-commerce campaign, especially because I don't have access to xyzecommerce.com, but you'll get a sense of how the the campaign URL builder will work. So you can, say, well, campaign source aligns with the campaign source tag here. All right. So then you get a bunch of information. So you see the number of users, how many of those were new users, what number of sessions happened. So this allows you to get a sense of, new versus returning. Then what's the bounce rate? How many people, came to your site, saw it, and then left immediately? Did people view more than one page? So, if they didn't bounce immediately, how many pages on average are they looking at? And how long are people staying on the site? So that's a lot of information that can be that can be helpful to you in terms of knowing how successful your website is at, keeping people on the website. Are people finding what they're looking for? You can get a sense of your e-commerce conversion rates. So within Google Analytics, you can set up goals for e-commerce, and you can find out how many people convert to whatever those goals are, how many transactions are there, and what's the revenue from those transactions. So this can be really important. You might not have a very high conversion rate, but if your revenue from each transaction is quite high, and you're still meeting your sales targets, then that might be, there's obviously room for improvement, but if you're meeting your goals, you can find that out here, which is really great. So all of this information is in one place. Google Analytics is amazing. So take some time if you want to. You can play around, but we are definitely going to come back to this in future classes. Okay, where were we? Let's also now talk about A/B testing. Okay, so A/B testing is a way for you to figure out, you can test two versions of the same thing. So let's say you are testing your new website layout, and you've got all of these visitors, they're randomly distributed, and half of them get version A and half of them get version B, and then you can measure overall. What you're trying to do is a sign up form. So your sign up form location is changed. So you've got like a slightly different layout, and how is that going to change? So we're looking directly at sign up forms. You get 50 signups from version A, you get 70 signups from version B. Version B is better than A. So you, after your test has finished, then you go with version B. So let's say you wanted to have, say we need to have at least 200 people visit this site so that we know that we're getting decent data. And then after 200 people visit that site, we'll analyze our results and go with the winner. And so you can do this with more than just your website. You can do this with emails, programs like MailChimp, basically all of the email marketing software or tools that are out there will give you this A/B testing version. So you can do it with your emails, you can do it with your social media, you can do it with your advertisements, you can do it with anything. You can do it with your email newsletter headlines. You can do it with the sign-up form buttons. So there's all these different ways that you can test. When it comes to being successful with A/B testing, there are a couple things to keep in mind. You want to be testing one variable at a time. As soon as you start doing like a bunch of different variables, so say you go back to this one. So say this is version A, and let's say version B also, not only did it move the sign-up form to a different location, your navigation bar is completely redesigned. Your page title and all the colors that you're using are different. Your sign up form button is different colors on every side, and you take away the news block. So that's too many variables. You're not going to know whether or not it's just moving the sign up form that's causing more or less signups. So it's important to make sure that you're only testing one variable at a time. I know that there are programs out there that allow you to do multivariate testing, and I would say that just try one at a time before you start getting into things that are more complex, because oftentimes when you get into things that are more complicated in terms of your testing, you're going to need to have more powerful analysis tools and an ability to kind of run the statistics, and that's not something that we are going to be talking about in this course, despite my love of statistics. And that wasn't sarcastic. So if you want to test one variable at a time, you want to compare the same metrics. So let's go back to this example again. The thing that you are, overall you're trying to increase your signups. So that is one of your key performance indicators, is going to be number of signups. But you're also going to want to test website traffic, bounce rate. Website traffic and bounce rate are going to be important too. So if people, you want to make sure that the same number of people are coming to the site, or similar numbers are coming to the site, so that you can actually get like a decent test pool of people. And then, are people just bouncing right off the site? Because, maybe you might get 75 signups, but maybe the bounce rate on version B is higher than version A. Maybe that doesn't matter because your signups are great, but what happens when you run this overall, if you decide to go with this, knowing that your bounce rate is really high, maybe it means that it's going to impact the people that are coming for your news block. Maybe they don't intend to sign up because they've already signed up and they're just here for the content. If you're causing them to bounce more than this one, version A, are you actually being more successful? So you can see that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of things to consider when it comes to A/B testing. You want to look at statistical significance, talk about that in just a second, and you want to test often. So don't just run a test once and say, okay, we did it, we found the ultimate solution, everybody high fives, let's celebrate with some cupcakes and some donuts, and must be dinner time, let's party, we did it, we found the ultimate website setup. Well, wouldn't that be nice? Yes, indeed. But we want to be testing often. So, maybe you want to run these tests every month. Maybe you want to run them every quarter. When it comes to your social media tests, you might want to run them, every week or every day. So you want to be running tests in a way that are constantly giving you new bits of information, because as we know with the internet, nothing stays the same. It's constantly changing. Social media is constantly changing. The way people engage with content is constantly changing. So you want to be making sure that you are testing things regularly. Okay, so let's talk about statistical significance. So let's look at this example for our A/B test. So we've got the same website, but two different versions, and the only thing that we've changed is the color of the download now button. We've got green, which is very much in line with the rest of this website, and then we've got blue, which makes it pop out quite a bit more. So we run a test, and we send people to both sites, and it turns out that we get just over 1,000 visits for version A, and we end up getting 97 downloads. And then version B, we get just under 1,500 visits and 123 downloads. So based on this, which version do you go with based on this information? Oh, I have this really awesome tool that you can use. Imagine that. So let's grab our information. Whoa. Grab our information. Okay, so we have, was it 97? And then 14.99 with, I don't remember, 123. Easy enough. So when we're looking at this at face value, you might have been thinking, Allie, why are we even talking about this? We got 123 downloads from version B. That's higher than 97. But remember that our visits weren't the same. So we want to check to see if there is a statistical difference between the two. So we go to our A/B significance test, and we plug in our numbers, and we check our conversion rates. So we know what our conversion rates are overall. We could have calculated that without this calculator, but then it does a statistical significance test. So it tells us that our test A converted 17% better than test B, and they are 88% certain that the changes in test A will improve your conversion rate. And so these aren't statistically significant results. So statistically significant, you typically want to be aiming for 90 to 95 or better. So, based on this, you could go with version A because it did convert better overall. And there's an 88% certainty, but when we're talking about statistical certainty, you want to be aiming for a much higher number, like 90% or ideally 95% or higher. So, what numbers would we need to see that change? You can play around with these a little bit. If we're looking at these new numbers, you can see that the conversion rates don't seem to be that different. And if you don't have this statistical significance test, you might not know whether or not 8% is really that much better than 13%. So based on their information, based on the information that you've put in, test A converted 57% better than test B, and they're 100% certain that changes in test A will improve your conversion rate. So this is a statistically significant difference. So that can make a pretty big difference in terms of your ability to get more information and to make really great decisions. And if you want to learn more about statistical significance and all that type of stuff, there is some great information in this Buffer blog. So they link out to more information about statistics. And, to calculate all these things by hand can be quite a bit. Even to calculate them using Excel can, you need to know how to use different statistical tools. So, calculating your standard deviation, maybe running in ANOVA, all of these different things. But you don't need to, because there's this great online tool that does it for you. But I do recommend reading this article. Not only does it talk a little bit about why statistical significance might be interesting and important, it also gives some interesting ways that you can test things. So it talks about Twitter and Facebook and all of these different ways that you can run different tests. And there's also some other test calculators. So this Get Data Driven was the one that we used. I like this one. It's super simple. It gives you what you need, and I find it to be fairly accurate. And there are a lot of different A/B tests or A/B testing software, for example, for websites. There's like a whole slew of places that you can go. Kissmetrics is one of the places. HubSpot does A/B testing, where you can actually set it up so that it's directing people to different versions of your landing page. And so, a lot of these tools have the built-in statistical significance tracker. But if you don't have that and you're just trying to see whether or not things are working and you want to do it manually, this is a great test. So I do recommend reading this article. I find that it's great. Obviously, it's Buffer. For those of you who've taken courses with me before, know I'm a huge Buffer fan. I love the way that they go about writing their articles. So if you aren't a regular Buffer reader, I highly recommend it. They are fairly scientific with their methods. They do a ton of testing, a ton of research. They have a great podcast, and I find them to be one of the more trustworthy sources of information about digital marketing overall. And I also just love their company culture is really awesome. And they're just they're a great company. I use Buffer all the time. So it's enough gushing over Buffer. Gosh, how embarrassing. URL campaign builder. We were talking about A/B testing. I'm getting distracted. Sorry, just to go back to the URL campaign building for a moment. I've put in our shared resources folder a URL tagging tool, so you don't always have to go back to this, this campaign builder tool. You don't always have to use this website. If you've got a bunch of different campaigns, or maybe you're working for a bunch of different clients and you just want to build all your URLs at once, you can use this tool. So it does the exact same thing. It builds this is a demo, by the way. I don't own this website. I don't even know where this goes. This was for another class. Gosh, I shouldn't just click on it without knowing what it is. It could be something not great. Yeah, you can put your medium, your source, your campaign name, all that information in. You don't touch this. Ne touche pas. Don't change anything that's in this column. This is your website URL that you want people to go to, and then you would just copy this and use it. Again, why am I doing this? You would copy this and use that in your marketing tools, your promos. You can use a URL shortener with it, either the Google URL shortener or the Bitly one, or tinyURL, whatever you use for your URL shortening, if you don't like this big, long, ugly one. So if you want to use this, you can copy and paste it into your own shared folder. So you go to File, and click on make a copy, and then that will create a copy in your own Google Drive where you can edit, because you're not going to be able to make edits in this specific file, just based on the sharing permissions. So you just go to File, make a copy, ta-da. And that goes for anything that is shared in our Google Drive folder. Like if there's something in there that you want to be able to edit and it's a Google Doc and you can't get that information, you can just go File and make a copy. And that's a way to also save a version of everything that is being shared with you into your own Google Drive, so that when this course is over, you still have access to all that information. Okay, back to our A/B testing. So we did our test, we found out which one was more successful, and then you can make a decision about which is the most successful version of that piece of content. Again, so your success with A/B testing comes by testing one variable at a time, comparing the same metrics, looking for statistical significance, and testing often. And so this is very much like an overview. There are, like I said, there are so many different tools to do A/B testing, and each of those tools depending on whether you're trying to test your website or your email or your social media accounts or your advertising. So there are a bunch of tools, and we can discuss that in the water cooler chat. If somebody is looking for information about different tools for A/B testing, we can definitely talk about that. I find, based on my experience, if you are going to work for a company, like say you decide to go and apply to a bunch of different PR companies after you're done this certificate program or you're done this course, they are already going to have their specific tools in place, and some of them are going to be enterprise versions of things like HubSpot. Some of them are going to be custom builds. Others are going to be kind of this hodgepodge of a variety of different tools together, and you're going to get on-the-job training with each of those things. So that's why I haven't taken the time to go through everything. And if we were to take that time to go through every single little tool, this lecture would be like 8 hours long. And I mean, I definitely don't want to listen to myself speak for 8 hours. I can only imagine that you don't want to hear that as well. So if you are curious about different tools that can be used for A/B testing, maybe strike up a discussion in the water cooler chat, and we can talk about that. And maybe if there are some of you that are using tools already, you can share your experiences with them, whether you like them or whether you don't like them, because there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to all of them. And I know for a lot of people, especially those of you who are maybe working as an independent contractor or like a consultant, or you're working for a small business or a charity, price plays a huge factor. For something like an enterprise version of HubSpot where you get all the bells and whistles, you're looking at thousands of dollars a month, versus some smaller kind of like hodgepodgey tool that like kind of gets the job done. It's a bit clunky, but you can make it work. That only costs you maybe $25 or $30 a month. So there's like such a wide range in the tools that are available. So the discussion for this week is I want to know how you are currently measuring your marketing efforts. So whether you are measuring your marketing efforts at work, maybe it's a volunteer program. If you aren't working, if you're student only right now, if you have measured marketing efforts in the past, that works too. Or if you are just a student, that's okay. You can talk with other people about how they're measuring and ask some questions. I want to know if you're already using a standard set of KPIs. Where did those KPIs come from? Was it something that you were in charge of deciding? Was it something that your boss was in charge of deciding? How did you come up with these KPIs? Did you just Google it? That's legit. We Google everything these days. Are you A/B testing? How are you A/B testing, and what are you A/B testing? Have you used custom URLs for your campaign tracking before? I want to know all about what you're doing in terms of measurement already. Share with us. This isn't a right or wrong. I'm just curious to see what people are out there doing. And this could be a good opportunity as well to talk about the different tools that you're using for A/B testing. So strike up a discussion. I've changed the forum a little bit this week so that we don't have a bunch of different feeds. It should all come as one thread so that we can all be communicating back and forth. We're going to test that out. If it's not working at all, then we'll go back to the other way where everybody can create their own threads if they want to in week 2, in week 3. So I guess we can consider this our A/B test for discussion forums to see how it works. Chime in. I'm excited to see what you guys are up to and kind of how you might already be using what we talked about in this week's lecture. And that's it. That's all. We will come back at it with week 3's lecture next week. Thanks, everybody.